round 24 tipping, guys. Just waiting for it to get all up and running, and we are on. Hey guys, how you going? So today on BKRsport, we are here for round 24 of the NRL tips. Now, as you guys know, we do these live streams where I'm going to be interacting with you guys after I do a good probably 8 to 9 minute spiel about where kind of both teams are at, who's playing each other, and what's going to be happening in this game. I do go through obviously all the previous result. I do go through the ladder positioning, and obviously considering there is only 2 rounds to go, this round and next week, we are going to be really diving into that ladder positioning because there are some really important games here with some really questionable decisions on team lists. So sit back, relax, obviously smack that thumbs up button, subscribe if you're new around here. If you are watching this video after we've obviously been live, do know that I have put the timestamps for each individual game, and these probably each individual game as well will be moved over to BKR clips as well on the day that they do go live for the game. So yeah, look, it's going to be an interesting one here. It is going to be very interesting because obviously my Titans play in a very important game this weekend against the Knights on Thursday, and that's going to be the first game that we do get into. So let's dive right into it, guys. Obviously, shoot through your questions in the chat, and I will answer them straight after this, after I talk a little bit about the game. I will answer about 3 to 5 questions, and then we'll move on to the next game. We'll probably be here for about an hour or so, guys. We'll probably be here for about an hour. But first game, Newcastle Knights, Gold Coast Titans. Now, this is probably the most important game of the round. Not just because I'm a Titans fan, obviously, but it is the most important game of the round. The Knights currently sit in 7th position. The Titans currently sit in 9th position. The Knights are on 24 points. The Titans are on 20 points. However, the Titans are equal on points with the Cronulla Sharks. The Titans do have a minus 46 points differential, whilst the Knights have minus 131 points differential. In between them, obviously, the Sharks have minus 32. So the Titans do need to win. Well, they don't necessarily need to win. It's not really a must to win, but it also kind of is a must to win, if you know what I'm saying. But it's also still mathematically not a must. The Raiders also sit in 10th position right now with 20 points and minus 85, and pretty much you can kiss goodbye to the rest of them, which is the Warriors, Dragons, and Tigers, who are on 18 points. And unfortunately, due to that Warriors loss to the Broncos, they did say sayonara. However, if the Titans are to lose this weekend, the Sharks and the Raiders, and they'd have a chance. But we're not talking about that right now. So Knights come into this game, obviously, last week. They got a nice little win, 22-16 over the Dogs. It wasn't the most fantastic of results for them, but they did get the W. It got them into a position where they're 4 points clear, and you would safely assume that it would take a miracle for them to get knocked out of the 8. They have the Titans this week, and then next week they have the Broncos. However, the Broncos have been improved, as we were just talking about. The Knights are, they're relatively clear. They're relatively clear right now. The Titans, Sharks, and Raiders, 2 of the 3 of those teams would have to win both games, whilst the Knights lose both games, and that would actually, because they're for and against of minus 131, that would knock them out. So Knights just have to win one more game from here on out, or hope that 2 other teams don't win twice, which is actually very possible. So I would very highly recommend the Knights to win a game from here on out. Titans, on the other hand, if they lose this game, they can drop down to 10th. If they lose this game, like I said, they're not mathematically gone, but they would need a lot to go their way against the Warriors, who is their bogey team, the following week. Now, let's go through the team lineups here, guys. Let's go through the team lineups here. All right. So, let's go to the Titans team lineup. Jaden Campbell, obviously, in fullback. We all know that because AJ Brimson has gone for jaw surgery. Philip Sammy has decided to come into this team. Tyrone Peachey has been named at 5'8", with Ash Taylor being out. Just, by the way, Greg Martiu was dropped. It was Philip Sammy has just randomly come into the team here on the wing. Mitch Rain has been recalled at hooker, which pushes Aaron Clark to the bench. Mikey Fodawaker will return from a knee injury from the bench, with Sam Lazzoni dropped to the reserves list. David Feeder, who was a starter last week, now is back to the bench this week, and Bo Firma is named to start. Kevin Proctor has been named to play despite suffering a shoulder injury to the Storm. Okay, what on earth have I just witnessed? As a Titans fan, this is the most important game for the Titans in literally 5 years, right? This is the most important game for the Titans in 5 years. The Titans always crush the Knights. They beat them by 44-16 or something earlier this year, beat them 36-0 at the end of last year. They always smack the Knights. So why are we changing around the team so much here? It doesn't really make a great deal of sense to me. Why is Philip Sammy coming back into the team when Greg Martiu has been fantastic? Why is Tyrone Peachey coming into the sticks when I actually think Ash Taylor's not been too bad of late? I just don't really get it. Fafita goes back to the bench. I get that because obviously a lot of the time, I did mention this to you guys last week, that Fafita is going to be used as a starter, I guess, against the really good teams because you need to get off to a good start. But in these games, it could be a bit of a grind early and then you come on a little bit later with Fafita to barnstorm through runs and just get over the line there. So I don't mind it necessarily. However, I'm very confused with Tyrone Peachey into the 6. I'm very confused with Sammy into the 2. But, it is what it is, guys. I have to back in our coach here. I have to assume that he knows what he's doing. If we lose this game, I will have pitchfork ready. I will have pitchfork ready because no one likes these changes at all. I've looked at all the Titans groups. I've looked everywhere. No one likes these changes. So if he gets it right, fantastic. He'll be known as a hero. If he gets this wrong, I can tell you right now, he's going to get absolutely slammed by every single Titans fan for the most important game in 5 years to be putting out this team. So hopefully he's right. Hopefully he can back himself in. We're going to back him. We're going to back him in. I'm going to back him in. He should know what he's doing. He's the coach. He better get it right. And I'm saying that. He better damn well get it right. Knights, obviously, David Clemmer has entered an early guilty plea over the win in one of these charges for a win over the Dogs. Sorry, I'm just real riled up about this team selection, and we'll miss one game. His place in the front row was taken by Suaso Su. Tyson Frizzell will return from a one-game ban. So Brody Jones will revert to the bench, and Baisami Saulo is listed among the reserves there for the Knights. So let's get into kind of what I think about this game. I was going to tip Titans by 13+. I'm very confident in the Titans. Obviously, you guys know that when the Titans play the Knights, I always say to you guys, back them in well because the Titans have a very good record against the Knights, especially recently. But this is now throwing everything out of whack. I still want to take Titans 13+ because I'm a Titans fan, but now I'm starting to think, okay, well, it's not a desperate situation for the Knights at all. Their for and against is terrible, so next week would then absolutely be a necessity for them to win against the Broncos if they are to lose this game, because then they'd be gone with the loss there. I don't see this as a dire, desperate situation for the Knights. I do see this as a dire, desperate situation for the Titans. So I'm going to take the Titans. You know what? I'm going to back them in 13+. You know what? Screw it. If you don't like it, I don't care. I'm going to take them 13+, but I do have my worries here. I do have my worries with those team selections. And look, I tell you what, Justin Holbrook, you better be right, mate. You better be right, because this is just going to be woeful if you are incorrect. But I'm taking Titans 13+ here. I'm going to go with I'm going to take a 26-12. You know what? I'm going to go 30. No, I'll go 36-22. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Titans always give up a lot of points. Actually, no, our defense has been relatively decent of late. Yes, they obviously came in losing that game to the Storm, but they were up at half-time against them. But then again, that was with different players in the team. And Greg Marcy had a fantastic game, and I thought Ash Taylor was, not too bad. So, look, taking 13+, I'm going to take him. I'll go 30-18. I'll go 30-16. 30-16. But let's move into the chat here. I'll answer 3 to 5 questions here. Drunken Boxing, Maces Ponga will grab a meat pie. Cool story. Did it taste as Titans will blow the Knights out of the park? I'd like to see it. Stephen Warren says 4 wins row Newcastle. Good luck with that one. Only NRL is going to be scrappy, but a really good game, I hope. I don't see this game being a scrappy game, to be honest with you, man. I feel like this is going to be a very high attacking game. Whether the Knights are able to score the points or not, that's another question, because the Titans defense has been better of late. Obviously, the Knights didn't have a great result against the Bulldogs last week, and we all know the Knights are the definition of inconsistency. I said last week that I could see the Dogs win that game. They came close. They came much closer than they probably should have. I think this is probably the week they do get done. But in the same sense, I really am confused about that team lineup, and I just keep going on about it, to be honest with you. Goat Jordan says, Gold Coast Titans 32, Knights 8, first try scorer Jaden Campbell at any time for feeder, but wouldn't be surprised if Knights sneak a win. I would be surprised if the Knights win this. I do. I really would. I know they've got Pong on the team. I know they've got Mitchell Pearce there. I know they've got pretty much a full team. This is 2 full teams going at it without those those changes. These are 2 full teams. I actually do look forward to Moaki Fodawaker coming back into the team off the bench, though. Nice Noah says Titans 1-12. CP Creek says 20-19 Knights. I don't get this thing that people always talk about in regards to 20-19. So why is a team kicking a field goal and then losing is my question. That's a really weird choice to make. If they're kicking a field goal, normally they'd be either going up by 1 or there'd be a reason for it. But I see a lot of predictions on my channel where people say 20-19 or 18-17 or and it's really strange to me, but it is what it is. If that's what you believe, then so be it. But yeah, that's going to do it for Knights Titans, guys, and let's move on into the next game. Before we do, hit that thumbs up button. Obviously subscribe if you are new around here. We do this every single week, and I can't wait to be doing it for the finals in a couple of weeks' time. Hopefully the Titans are in it, but gee whiz, I am nervous. But next game is the New Zealand Warriors going up against the Canberra Raiders at 6 p.m. on Friday AST up in Mackay. Interesting little game here. Obviously, the Raiders are in a must-win. If the Raiders lose this game, they're done. Their for and against just simply isn't good enough. -85. I know it's not terrible, but they're still 39 points behind the Titans, and they're still 50 points, 53 points or whatever behind the Sharks, just off the top of my head. It's not looking good for them, right? And they're playing a Warriors team that arguably should have beat the Broncos last week. They missed 5 conversions, and it was a really tough loss for the Warriors. It was a really tough loss for them to effectively make them miss the finals. They would obviously need to beat the Raiders here. Titans lose, and then the Sharks lose this week, and then next week they'd have to go and beat the Titans, and the Raiders lose and the Sharks lose to be able to get above. So, yeah, a real big predicament here for the Warriors. I'm happy to wipe them out. I've been wiping them out for 3 to 4 weeks now, but now people are starting to understand, I guess because it is only 2 games to go. If the Rays win this game, they can potentially, obviously if the Sharks lose and the Titans lose, go up to 8th position and put themselves in the finals, but they would have to rely on those other 2 teams losing. So a lot still has to go the way of the Raiders, even if they are to win this game. Raiders come into this game after losing 19-18 to Manly last week. It was a good game. Rays actually went out to a 12-0 start, but we all know that they are a woeful second half team. This team is dead set one of the worst second half teams I've ever seen. Usually you get every fan base saying, well, my team's a pretty good second half team, so watch them in the second half. I can tell you right now, if a Rays fan ever says that to you, slap them in the face, because that's the dumbest thing they've ever said in their life, because this team continues to lose every single second half. It's just ridiculous. I don't know how it's possible, and they lost 19-18 that even though they gave up 0 points in that first half there. Warriors, obviously we all know about it, the 24-22 loss to the Brisbane Broncos there. Let's go and look at the team lineups here. For the Warriors, Matt Lodge will return from suspension, which pushes Tanoa Brown to the reserve list. Wade Egan is also named to start at hooker with Jazz Savanga on the bench. Back rower, Josh Curran has been named despite suffering a head knock against the Broncos. Sean O'Sullivan is the new 5'8", with Channel Harris-Tavita out of the side. So it's interesting there that obviously Chad Townsend keeps his spot despite not really doing a great deal last week. Cody Nikorima returns on the bench after a hectic week leading up to the Broncos game when his partner gave birth to the couple's second child there. So that is the Warriors lineup. Nothing really surprising there. Obviously, Reece Walsh in at the fullback area, and their back line's pretty much the same, except for Sean O'Sullivan comes in for Harris-Tavita, and also, Jazz Fungus on the bench, Bunty Afoa, and Cody Nikorima. So, their halves pairing is completely different to what I would have been expecting, but in the same sense, there you go. That's their team. The most important part here, the Raiders, Matt Frawley takes over at halfback with Sam Williams relegated to the reserves. Jordan Rapana holds the fullback spot, and Charles Cloxer is again on the bench. Well, there is still no sign of Jared Croker. His knee obviously is done for there. Corey Horsburgh returns from his 2-week stint on loan to the Bulldogs, and he slots on the bench with Denami Louis dropping out. Saliva Havili is the other new face on the interchange bench. Semi Valeme is listed amongst the reserves as he looks to return from a throat injury suffered in round 21. So that is the team lineups there. Interesting that obviously they brought in Matt Frawley here for Sam Williams. I thought that Sam Williams has held himself down relatively well this year. Obviously he's not been the most stunning player ever, but that's to be expected. We all know that Sam Williams has been around a long time and hasn't really been able to do a great deal. Look, I'm going to take the Raiders here, guys. I'm going to take the Raiders by 1 or 12. I think the Warriors will push because it is still kind of a make or break situation per se, but it's still not going to happen for them even if they do win. But the Raiders, I'm going to take them to win 1 to 12 here. It's going to. I think the Warriors have completely checked out at this point after losing to the Broncos. Raiders need to win. If they don't win, they're pretty much done too. So I'll back them in, but I'm not convinced. This is a tough game to read, but I'll say Raiders, 24-20. I'll go 24-20 there. And that's my thoughts on the Warriors and Raiders game. And now let's jump into the chat. Let me know your thoughts about this game. Jamie Robertson says, Manly's second half is always better, and 7 errors first half and 1 in second half. That was the difference. No, that wasn't the difference, actually, Jamie Robertson. The difference was the fact that the Raiders have done this about 6 or 7 times this year. One of them was obviously to the Tigers. One of them actually came against the Warriors earlier this season. The Titans absolutely annihilated them in the second half. Manly obviously did it. We've seen it. So many Dragons did it a couple of weeks back. No, it wasn't to do with just Manly coming back there. This was to do with the Raiders having a common theme that has been nicknamed them for about 10 years now. They have been known the faders for a very, very, very long time. This team does not have it in the second half. I understand that Manly fans want to believe that because they want everyone to stop talking about Tom Trbojevic as being a one-man team. They looked terrible in the first half. When the Raiders were doing well, they looked terrible. Second half, they came home strong. So Manly could be a decent second half team, but it really came down to the fact that the Raiders are known as faders for a reason. So yeah, look, Manly came back. Cool story. I know you want to go with that, narrative to try and get away from the Tom Trbojevic situation. However, it is a fact the Raiders suck in second halves. So do not take away from that, because that is a very frequent thing that we do see with that team. Luke Parmenter says, Jack White and Josh Papali'i and Chris have their best game of the season and help the Faders win 12-8. Wow, that's a low scoring game. Gee whiz. 12-8. My goodness me. Sachin Kelson says, not that confident, but I'll back the boys in 22-18 over the Warriors. Digitate says, Raiders 24-22. Only NRL says Warriors could win or Raiders could win, but I'm taking Warriors 26-18 and Raiders 12-6 at halftime. Okay, so you're assuming they're going to fall away completely. You're assuming they're going to fall away completely. Not necessarily a great deal surprising there. Dasmay says Manly's attack was shit with that turbo. It was, and they came back in the second half. But it is what it is, man. You know, if Manly fans want to go with that narrative, that's fine, man. They can back that in as much as they like. Go Jordan says Warriors 22, Raiders 20. Steve Warren says 3 weeks or finals. No, it is in 2 weeks' time. It is in 2 weeks' time. This is the second last week here. But that should do us for this game here. Let's move into the next game, which is a massive game here. Before we do, hit that thumbs up button. Obviously, subscribe if you are new around here, baby. Let's keep going. Let's keep growing. Let's get to 13,000. We're on our way. But big game. South Sydney Rabbitohs going against the Sydney Roosters. I should have said it the other way around because the Roosters are the home team. However, it is at Suncorp Stadium. The Roosters do sit currently in 4th position, whilst the Rabbitohs do sit in 3rd position. The Roosters can't win and get the Roosters at this point of the season. Actually, it's mathematically impossible for them to jump any higher than they are. However, they are still absolutely in a top 4 battle here. Manly are chirping down right behind them. They've got a 206 points differential. Manly do. While the Roosters have a plus 159 points differential, so Manly have about 50 in advance of them, which is basically saying if the Roosters lose at all from here on out, then we're probably going to see Manly in the top 4, and this is a tough game for them. The Eels, obviously, they're on 30 points as well with Manly, but their for and against is 131, which isn't that far behind the Roosters on 159. It's about 28 or so off the top of my head. Look, the Eels aren't going to do it. They've got the Storm and the Panthers. Look, let's just wipe them out from top 4 potential, but the Roosters have to win both their games from here on out. And this game is against the Rabbitohs, who do sit in 3rd position. They're still technically in the hunt for the first position minor premiership, but they're not really. Their points differential being 276 and the Storm being 499. They would need to win by about 70 both games, and Storm would have to lose by about 70 both games, and then it would still be relatively close, I guess. Panthers, they're on 342, so they're about 70 different there. It's 2 points between them, so they are still technically playing for the second positioning with the Panthers. However, they would need to assume that they lose one of those games, and when they lose, to lose probably pretty big here, unless the Rabbitohs are expecting to get a 60 to 70 point win here against their rivals, which obviously I wouldn't, after recent showings, I wouldn't be surprising. But let's move into, last week, obviously, the Rabbitohs lost 25-12 to the Panthers. We all know how controversial that was. Whether you believe it was a robbery or not, I don't really give a shit. But it was 25-12 to the Panthers in that one. It was a close game. It was a good game. And I think it actually proved more about the Rabbitohs than you do actually believe in regards to being a quality team. But that's just my thoughts. If you ever call me to say a downtown penalty again and say that they say it every single week, please spam me. I've never heard that before until this week. But, let's move on. Roosters 40-22 over the Dragons. It was a solid performance by the Roosters. It was. The Dragons actually led in the second half at one stage, but the Roosters pulled away in the end. So, a bit of fitty-fitty, a little bit of fitty-fitty about that one. But the Roosters did get a nice little solid win in the end by about 18 points and did hit the frickin' 30. The frickin' 30. But the Roosters team lineup here, goal-kicking centre Adam Kieran and forward Nat Butcher have both been left out of the side. Lachlan Lamb will move into the centres, and Egan Butcher has been put into the second row to start. Sam Walker will start at halfback after coming off the bench last week. Ben Marshke and Nafahu White are the new face on the bench, with Walker and Butcher going to the starting side. There we go. Brad Abbey has been named on the wing for his first NRL game since 2018 at the Raiders. Good on the man. Good on him. Rabbitohs, on the other hand, Keon Kaloamatangi has accepted a 2-match ban for a crusher tackle, which puts Jaden Sewer into the back row there. Veteran winger Josh Mansour, unfortunately, probably won't be back this season after suffering a knee injury against the Panthers, with Jackson Paulo coming into the side there. Junior Totola has passed the HIA on Friday night, but we'll need to go through some further tests after complaining of blurred vision. He's been named on the interchange bench, with Thomas Burgess named to start. Liam Knight is on the reserves list as he continues to work his way back from concussion. So that's the team lineups there from both these teams. This is the biggest rivalry in the NRL. This is a very difficult game to predict all the time. Do I think that the Rabbitohs are going to win this game? Absolutely. Do I think that it's going to be a tight-knit, real... Look, as much as you want to say Rabbitohs 13 plus here, the Roosters have to win this. They have to win if they want to make the top 4. If they lose this game, they will not be making the top 4, because I can tell you right now, Manly this week, they play the Bulldogs, and then Manly next week, they play the Cowboys. So they don't have a tough run home. I'm going to take the Rabbitohs here, and I'm going to take them by 4 points, because I think the Roosters are going to be desperate. I'm going to take Rabbitohs 1-12. I think the Roosters are going to be desperate. I think it might be a very interesting close game that a lot of people probably are tipping Rabbitohs 13 plus for. I wouldn't be surprised if you are taking Rabbitohs 13 plus for, but I'm taking them 1-12. I'm going to take them by 4. I think the Roosters are going to be desperate. However, they're just going to fall short in the end. But let's go to the chat and let's see what your thoughts are. Isaac says, I actually think Daniel Tupper has had one of his best years. Ooh, I don't know about best years. He had a good game last week, but I don't know about best years. He's been a little bit... I haven't heard a lot spoken about him this year. Obviously, I watch every single game. I know what you're talking about. He has been decent, but in the same sense, best years, we've seen some pretty good ones in the past, man. I'd find it tough to say one of his best years this year. Digitate says, I want to support my Roosters, but I think we're going to get pumped by the tricolour, by Go Tricolours. I just don't... Look, I can easily see a pumping here. I could easily see the Rabbitohs get a pumping here. The Roosters weren't exactly spectacular against the Dragons, despite scoring 40, but that's the way the game is nowadays. You don't necessarily need to be spectacular, and you can still score 40. You can still technically score 50. So you can score 50 in bloody one half. Look at Manly versus the Titans. They were terrible in the first half and then flew home in the second half. That's the nature of the game nowadays. So I don't think the Roosters were fantastic, but they still got the win to win 40 to 22 or whatever it was. Yeah, I'll go Rabbitohs. I'll go by 4. Let's see some score predictions here. Anthony says I'll take the Rabbitohs 32-30. Wowchie mama, that's a high scoring game. Yikes. Rabbitohs defense is a lot better than you're giving it credit for. I'd probably say 20-16. Or I could even say 16-12 here, man. I could even say 16-12 here to the Rabbitohs, but I'll go 20-16 because it can be very high scoring, obviously, and that gives me a little bit more space to work with. Nice Noah says Rabbitohs 38-12. Dimitri dresses Roosters by 1 goal point. I was considering going Rabbitohs by 1, but I did push it out to that 4 marker. Luke Parramatta says Walker and Mitchell carry Souths to a 24-14 win. I should have said Souths, but I did read out Souths. But 24-14 win. Yeah, 24-14 doesn't seem too implausible either. But yeah, I've got 1-12, so I'll happily, Someone actually sent me a DM the other week of what it would cost on a multi of every one of my thing, and I think I only got one of them wrong. But this was a few weeks ago. Last week, I don't know. I don't think I did well last week. That's because I went with a couple of sneakies. It's the end of the season. You have to go with a couple of sneakies. Jack says 19-12 to the Rabbitohs. Jack Dempsey says Rabbitohs 32-14, and Big Boy Momo says Rabbitohs 20-4. You wish that I read out the rest of that name. But that's going to be it for the Roosters-Rabbitohs game. I have gone Rabbitohs by 1-12, and 4 points is my specific margin. Let's obviously move into the next game here, but before we do that, obviously go and smack-a-roono that thumbs up button, smack it, and obviously subscribe if you are new around here, because if you haven't done it, my goodness me, I'm putting the hoodoo on your team. You're going to come last next year, and it is an absolute cold-hearted fact. But the first game, not the first game, the fourth game of the weekend on 3 p.m. Saturday at Rockhampton is the St. George Illawarra Dragons versus the North Queensland Cowboys. The Dragons currently sit in 12th place and the Cowboys currently sit in 15th place. Obviously, the Broncos, with that win over the Warriors, put themselves above the Cowboys because the Broncos have a minus 254 points differential. However, the Cowboys have a minus 272 differential. Now, that mainly also came because they lost by another 16 to the Eels there, which was just, it was a woeful game for the Cowboys, whilst the Broncos obviously got that 24-22 win over the Warriors. Not much to talk about in regards to ladder positioning here, guys. Yes, technically the Dragons can put themselves to equal, like they're in the same situation as the Warriors, but they would need the Warriors, the Raiders, the Titans, and the Sharks. Oh no, actually no, I think it's actually impossible now. It is actually impossible. Well, it's not impossible. They would need the Warriors to win, and no, I think it is impossible because the Warriors would then have to play the Titans next week unless they can get an extra 11 points differential over the Warriors, which is actually possible, but there's too much that they would need. Mathematically possible, but, get out of my face. So the Dragons, they're in 12th, but they can also drop below the Tigers into 13th if the Tigers do get a win against the Panthers. Good luck with that one, buddy. But let's move into the team lineups here. In regards to the Dragons, they've got quite a few changes, actually. They've got 6 losses on the tour, so not really surprising. Tyrell Sloan is the new fullback, taking place of Matt Duffy. Makes sense, considering that Matt Duffy is obviously not a Dragon next year, so you may as well give Tyrell Sloan a couple of nice little cracks to finish off the season. Blake Laurie will return from a hand injury, and Josh Maguire will come into... They're both the props for this weekend, with Jaden Sullivan taking over at hooker. Obviously, Josh Maguire didn't actually play horrifically. I think he bagged a nice little meat pie as a hooker, but he's still not exactly the greatest hooker since sliced bread. Jack DeBellin will go from prop to lock, with Tarek Sims from lock to second row, and Tyrell Fuimaono from the second row to the bench. Mikhail Ravalawa has been named to play despite failing a HIA on Sunday. He'll be monitored as the week progresses. Lone player Freddie Lussick will come in on the bench there for the Dragons. Let's have a look at that half pairing firstly. Talatau Amone and Corey Norman. Okay, so fair enough. No surprises there. We move into the Cowboys with Jason Tamalolo, Kyle Felt, and Murray Talangi returning with a big boost for the side, because obviously I think they're on a massive losing streak. I can't remember how many games they've lost, but it's like 7 or something like that. It's ridiculous. Felt and Talangi take over on the wings, with Val Holmes sliding to the centres, and Alaitia Mothandreki Tosoviti dropping to the reserves. Dejan Arce will drop out of the side to make way for Holmes' shift to centre. Tamalolo has been named at prop, which is where Francis Molo will be going to the reserves list. Ruben Cotter is named at lock, and Mitchell Dunn on the interchange. Griffin Neem will return from suspension on the bench. So that is the team lineups there for the Dragons and the Cowboys game. Now, where am I going to lean with here? Obviously, guys, I'm going to be streaming this game. I stream literally every single game in the NRL. So if you didn't know that, obviously tune into the channel when I do it. But Dragons Cowboys, yikes! This is just a game that is just not going to be exciting. It just doesn't mean anything. $1.65 at the Dragons, $2.25 at the Cowboys. Honestly, I wouldn't argue it if it was the other way around either. I'm actually going to take the Cowboys here. I'm going to take the Cowboys here. I think they've looked shocking. I really do. I think they look shocking, but Rockhampton is more of a home crowd, I guess, for the Cowboys and the Dragons. So despite the Dragons being a technical home side, I think the Cowboys might have a little bit more about them. Obviously, they do get those inclusions. I have liked, obviously, Murray Talangi when he has been in the team throughout the year. I really do like him. I've never been a fan of the halves pairing of Scott Drinkwater and Tom Dearden, and I absolutely am not a fan of Tom Dearden or Scott Drinkwater alongside Chad Townsend next year, but that is next year. We'll get into that a little bit later on. Jason Tamalolo is a big inclusion there, so I'm going to take the Cowboys 1-12 here. I don't think it's going to be an exciting game at all. I wouldn't be surprised if Dragons win this 1-12. I don't really care who wins this. It's not going to do a great deal of damage either side, and congratulations for probably wasting about 80 minutes of our time on Saturday. However, we'll still watch it. We'll still have a good time with you guys, and we'll kick back and hopefully see maybe the Cowboys break their losses in a row record, or Dragons. I don't know. Shit, man. It's not exactly the greatest game there. DLCF Gaming says 10 in a row. Oh, wow. Cowboys are on 10 in a row? Is that really? Is that real? Wow, wait. Harry Wood says there will be more errors than points this game. That's not actually too far off the truth, to be completely honest with you, man. Charlie Diambra says, I'm backing the Dragons, but I think the Cowboys will win. Well, then why are you backing the Dragons if you think the Cowboys will win? Unless you must be a Dragons fan then. Why would you? You must be a Dragons fan then. God Jordan says, Dragons 38, Cowboys 6, first try. Wow. Oh, you're a Dragons fan. 38-6, first try scorer Sullivan, anytime Sloan. Anthony says, Cowboys 22-16. Only NRL says Dragons 48-24, halftime 24-12. Wow, that's a very high scoring game. I just don't think the Cowboys have a great deal of attack, and the Dragons' attack isn't exactly fantastic either. I know they put like 22 points on the Roosters, but in the same sense, I just don't think that's a regular thing for them. I'm not a big fan of how this team goes. I really am. I'm not. You guys know that I'm not. But I'm not hating on them. I'm just telling you the truth. They're not great. I've been telling you all season long they're not making the A. Dragons fans are like, oh, they're making the A. Mate, you're pretty crazy, mate. The Dragons made the A easy. The Dragons made the A with like 6 weeks to go. About too good. I said, well, why don't you just shush? Why don't you just shush in the wait? We wait until 3-4 rounds to go. Well, it took about until 5-6 rounds to go before we started realising. But we're here now, and welcome to the party, Dragons fans. Carl says Val in the centres will be interesting. Yeah, I find that interesting. Obviously, I would have preferred him on the wing, but whatever, man. They just better tinker with this team. They are coming 15th right now. They can't get the wooden spoon, obviously, because the Bulldogs are officially wooden spooners this year. They're now 8 points behind the Cowboys, and it's just woeful. It is just woeful down there. But to be honest, the Bulldogs are so bad that basically 15th is last place, because the Bulldogs are in a world of their own. So this is a bad season for the Cowboys. However, if they win this game, Broncos lose against the Sharks, the Cowboys will obviously go back into 14th position. WSN Wiz says the Cowboys lost 9 in a row but beat the Dragons to break the losing streak. Oh, true. Well, there you go. My goodness me. Digitate says this. Oh wait, that is this week. Yeah, fair enough. I'm all over the shop. Digitate says this game will put me to sleep. DLCF Gaming says message retracted. Nice message there. That was a nice message. Message retracted. Gee whiz, that's crazy. But that's going to do us. Someone said nil all draw. Jungle Boxing and Mate says nil all draw. Fair enough, mate. It wouldn't surprise me. But that's going to do us for that game. Let's move into the second half of the games. But before we do that, smackarooner that thumbs up button. If you don't do it, what are you damn well doing? I don't know what you're doing with your life. But also, hit that subscribe button right damn on now. Go and hit that subscribe button to join the BK Army. I do really appreciate you. But the Sharks versus the Broncos. Cronulla Sharks and the Brisbane Broncos. Big game here for the home side. Kind of an okay game for the Broncos. But I guess they're trying to warm themselves up to next year where they feel they're going to be a lot better. This is 5:30 p.m. at Suncorp Stadium. Sharks are the home team, but it is at Suncorp, which is great if you're a Titans or a Raiders fan, because it does give the advantage back to the Brisbane Broncos, and I like to see that. I know I'm a Titans fan, but my goodness me, I've never seen myself cheering for the Broncos so much with their kind of run home against teams around that 8 area. Obviously, the Sharks are in 8th position. We've gone over this many times now. If they lose this game, they do have the potential to drop down to 10th if the Raiders win and the Titans win. If they lose this game, Titans lose this game, Raiders lose this game, they will stay, depending on how much they lose by, they would still stay in 8th, but it will be still very close going into next week with them having to beat the Storm, which is a big one for them. Melbourne Storm is who the Cronulla Sharks play next week. So realistically, they have to win this game. Because if the Storm so happen to lose to the Eels and the Panthers so happen to beat the Tigers, the Panthers would go equal on points with the Storm, and that would force the Storm to have to play their full team against the Sharks in round 25 to make sure and ensure that they get the minor premiership. So a big win here for the Sharks. They need it. They absolutely need to win here, because if they lose, Broncos here, obviously, if they lose, they can go down to 15th, and their points differential is so shit. They're not going above the Tigers in 13th. They'd have to win both games and Tigers lose both games. But the Tigers losing both games isn't exactly crazily out of the question. Last week, Broncos 24-22 over the Warriors, whilst the Sharkies come in of a 50-20 win over the Tigers, and the Tigers just looked absolutely woeful there. Sharks looked pretty bad too, but they obviously scored 50 points, and it comes back to what I said before, guys. Doesn't matter how bad you play or good you play, you still probably can score 50 to 60 points, even on a bit of a rough day there. We go to the team lineups here. Mawene Hiroti has been named as the replacement winger for Ronaldo Mulitalo, who unfortunately I don't believe is going to be playing for the rest of the season. You know, I love Mulitalo, great winger, but unfortunately he suffered the same thing that AJ Brimson has, and he's had to undergo jaw surgery. Connor Tracy will retain his spot in the centres, and 2-try rookie playmaker Luke Metcalf gets another start at 5'8". I thought he was pretty good on the weekend. Didn't see him do well the other week, but he did well on the weekend. And Aiden Tolman will return from a one-match suspension via the interchange, which forces Billy Magoulias to the extended bench. Broncos coach Kevin Walters has named an unchanged 17. Wowee. Crazy to see that. Xavier Coates took a knock to the elbow in the closing stage of the win, but he still will be all right to go. And Tyson Gamble has apparently undergone surgery on his hand, by the way, so won't play again this season. But how good was Anthony Milford on the weekend? My goodness me. Buddy, we all love a MILF in our lives. MILFs are the most important part in society, and we all love a good MILF. And Anthony Milford, oh my goodness me, what a bloody player. What a bloody player on the weekend. He actually turned back his clock until probably about 2015 when he was last good. But yeah, Tessie New as a fullback, Xavier Coates, Corey Oates on the wings. Xavier Coates obviously bagged 2 tries there. I did tell you to back him as your first try scorer in that game, and he scored the first 2 tries. Did you say that on a stream? So if you're not watching the streams live, my goodness me, what do you think you're doing in life? My God, it's just out of control, to be honest with you, man. It is literally just out of control. Look, I'm going to take the Sharks here. As much as I want the Broncos to win, and I think the Broncos can win, I'm going to take the Sharks here, and I'm going to take the Sharks by 6. I think the Broncos will give them a solid crack. The Broncos have a very good record against the Sharks, but I just feel like this is too important for the Sharks, and they're going to have to really rely. They won't want to obviously have to really rely on beating the Storm, I guess, at the Sunshine Coast next week. It's actually at Seabar Super Stadium, so they're playing at the Gold Coast home ground, go figure. I really do want to take the Broncos here, but I'm not going to, because then it would just seem like I'm doing it because I want the Titans to go above them, but I just wasn't impressed by the Sharkies. Obviously, you guys know the Sharks are a soft spot team for me because my mum is a Sharks fan, but overall, when they're going up against my team, I want them to get driven into the ground and put their head right down into the sand, and then just shove them further and further and further, right? But I have to be kind of realistic here. The Sharks are playing for so much. I just don't think they're special, but I'll give them the win. Just don't be surprised if the Broncos do win this game and throw a massive spanner down the works of Cronulla, because they do have a good record against the Sharkies, and it is at Suncorp Stadium, and the Sharks just aren't fantastic. But that's just my thoughts. Let's obviously move over to the chat and let's see some comments. Levi Hawkins said one of the dumbest comments in history, which is Warriors can still make the 8, brother. Trust. Yeah, good luck, mate. Hey, good luck with that one, buddy. Like a little $5 membership coming up from Mr. Levi Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins with a nice little $5 membership coming up this weekend, because obviously I did tip the Raiders, so you're not going to like that one, big boy. You're not going to like that one. Greasy Gamer says, I don't like playing Brisbane, man. There's a Sharks fan right there who knows what he's talking about. He knows the Broncos have a good record against the Sharkies, and this is a very important game for the Sharks. So, you got to really take this one, and this is going to be an exciting game, I feel. I feel like this will be a good game. Obviously, it was a couple of weeks. Did they play a couple of weeks ago and the Broncos won, actually? Am I wrong in saying this? Did the Broncos not win this a couple of weeks ago against the Sharkies? I could be wrong here. I'm pretty certain they did, actually. It was a great game. It was a great game, and I think it was at Suncorp Stadium. The Broncos were the home team. Let me just, round 18... maybe. So I'm just going back a little bit. It was before the Tigers' capitulation for the Broncos. They had a bye there. Broncos Sharks 26-18. That's right. The Broncos did win 26-18 over the Sharkies in that game. That was an absolute thriller. It was an absolute thriller of a game. I really hope it's a similar scoreline there. But okay, well, that gives me more belief in the Broncos. But I'll still take the Sharkies here 1-12. But gee whiz, I hope I'm wrong. Whoever's listening, well, I don't mind what you believe in. Whoever's listening, I don't care. All right. If I want to be wrong, I want to be wrong. Okay, I want to be wrong, but I will take the Sharks 1-12 here. I'm going to take them by 4 points now. Actually, I'm going to sneak a little bit back there. But will be very, very interesting. Zempire says Golden Hole and Logic says Tigers lose this week. Junkin Boxing says holy moly, Tigers were god awful. Why are we talking about the Tigers right now? We will get there. Luke Parramatta says Will Kennedy, Luke Metcalf, Tracy, Sione Katoa, and Moylan late in the second half will kill the Broncos in 36-18. Well, you did lose last time, so I wouldn't be getting too overconfident there. Xavier Sands says Broncos won against the Sharks in round 16. Yeah, I know, that's why we just went back and I saw that. I remember that. It was one of my favourite games of the season, actually. It was very intense, to be honest with you, but really enjoyed it. So hopefully it's a similar result. Hopefully it's a similar game, but unfortunately I will be going against the result. But I don't want to see a Sharkies win here. I don't want to see a Sharkies win, because that would help my Gold Coast Titans quite significantly. But let's move into the third last game of the weekend. But before we do that, smack-a-roona the thumbs up button, smack it, and obviously subscribe if you are new around here, because if you don't subscribe, your team will lose every game in 2022, and that is an absolute fact. Cold-hearted fact. Us at chat, they know it's true. But let's move into the next game, and that is the 7:35 PM game on Saturday, which is the Melbourne Storm going up against the Parramatta Eels. Wow. Well, Storm are $1.07 to win this game, and the Eels are 9-1 to win this game. Crazy to think that the Eels at the beginning of the season were at first, and then became second, and then were third, and then fourth, and then fifth, and then now they're sixth. And they're very lucky that they can't drop any further, because they have looked absolutely god-awful towards this end of the season. Like, they have looked woeful. Storm are in first place, obviously. If they are to get this win here, they would obviously lock up the minor premiership. Because they can't. It was 160 points. They've got 499 differential compared to the Panthers, who have 342. So even if the Panthers won and Storm won, and then Storm lost next week to the Sharks and the Panthers won, they would still obviously get the minor premiership there due to the differential. So this is really the kind of game for them. But I don't really think they care a great deal. But actually, Craig Bellamy, I think a couple of weeks ago, was saying something about if the Storm, or Ryan Pappenhausen was saying if the Storm lose, it might actually help them. I can't remember. Someone was saying it, but I don't believe in that kind of thing that people always say, oh, we needed this loss. It's like, no. But I get it, but it's also kind of stupid. But yeah, the Storm obviously in first, and the Eels are in sixth position. Storm coming into this game after having a pretty interesting game against the Titans. Titans gave it a good crack. They were leading in the first half, but the Titans fell away in the second half to just simply the better team, and the Storm won 34-20 there. The Eels, obviously, they won 32-16 over the Cowboys, but yikes. That was their first win in a while, because obviously a couple of weeks ago they lost 56-10 to Manly. The Cowboys are just that awful that they were still able to get a very significant win there. Let's move into the team lineups here. Storm will bring back Brandon Smith and centre Justin Olam. After they're rested in round 23, Harry Grant will slide back to the bench, whilst Marion Seve will drop to the reserves. Jerome Hughes and Tui Kamikamitha has been named to return from injury, with Hughes replacing Nico Hines at half, fair enough, forcing utility to the interchange, and Kamikamitha on the extended bench. So we finally have seen that Nico Hines to the bench, Pappenhausen in the 1, and Jerome Hughes obviously in the 7. So now we're not seeing, because we had seen that they were continuing with Nico Hines as the fullback, but I was finding it interesting considering that he is at the Sharkies next year. Lockdale Finnegan has been given another week, with winger George Jennings suffering a recurrence of a knee injury against the Titans and has been replaced by Dean Illawarra. So that's a Storm lineup there. Eels, on the other hand, Blake Ferguson will make his return from a calf injury because Marcus Sivo obviously did his knee on the weekend. The only other changes to the side that snapped, okay, I've not reading that part, that snapped a 4-game losing skid. Well, there you go. The Eels lost 4 games in a row. See Ray Stone and Keegan Hipgrave promoted to the in-change from the extended bench in a swap with Will Smith and Oregon Kafusi. Well, there you go. So a couple of minor changes there for the Eels, but obviously that's a big one there with Blake Ferguson coming in for Marcus Sivo due to that injury, which was very tough to see. Tosso Viti. Now, what am I going to say about this game? I think the Storm will take it easy. I think they'll win. They always beat the Eels. I think the Storm will take it relatively easy, though. I'll take a Storm by 12. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if the Eels snuck something here. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised, just because it kind of doesn't mean a great deal for the Storm. I personally believe they're going to win next week, regardless, to be completely fair, just because the Sharks are also a bit of their rivals, and I don't think they're going to necessarily want to see the Sharkies making the 8, because Sharks do have a relatively decent record against them, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Storm did take a little bit easy here. I will still take Storm by 12, and it'll be a relatively convincing 12. It could honestly be by 60. Like, he could honestly just throw out a 70. A sexy 70 or a 60 schlimmer, but I'm going to say that they're going to win by 12, and it's going to be a closer game than you expect, but it's not going to really be a close game. It's just going to be kind of straight up. How you going? Dasmate says, if the Storm lose, we have to deal with Para fans. Not really, mate, because if Para fans start talking shit, we'll start talking about how they've not won in 35 years, and they're also not in the top 4 when they told me they were going to win the minor premiership. So, no, Parramatta fans aren't going to tell us that they're going to win the comp. Yes, obviously, they beat the Storm early this season. What the shit, man? Like, we're going into the finals. If Parramatta think they can win the comp, my goodness me, good luck to you, man. Good luck to you. Be my guest. You want to believe you win the comp, be my guest. But I feel like most Parramatta fans are pretty under the knowledge, or what is it, under the viewpoint, I guess, that Parramatta aren't winning the comp this year. They just don't look good enough at all. They looked shocking against anyone of note. They came up and beat the Storm in 18-12 or something in torrential weather, which was just ridiculous. Both teams played in the same circumstances, but also you're not going to get those kind of weather all the time. So Storm on a dry track will beat them, and will normally beat them well. But I just think that it's a bit of a canter home here for the Storm on the way to the finals. Vesta says Melbourne would have had this game circled on calendar because this is one of 2 teams that have beat them. Not really, man. Storm don't give a shit about that. Storm care about winning the final. They don't care about winning random season games. They don't give a shit. They just don't give a shit about winning a random game because of what, an ego boost? Mate, they're the current grand final champions. They've won many grand finals. They don't care about beating some rando team just because they beat them early this season. The ultimate pride is to win the grand final. As if anyone cares about winning a regular season game if you're on target to win a grand final. No, they don't have this circled. Yes, obviously, if they get a win, they'd be like, oh yeah, we got back on them, but they don't care. They couldn't care less about that. That's something that fans care about. That's not something the players care about. That's not something the team cares about. Unless it was like the Panthers. I guess the Storm would have the Panthers circled in, and that's exactly what they did, but the Panthers did have like 5 or 6 players out at the time, so you can't really include that. But when it comes to a team that's not going to win the grand final, or even be in the grand final with you, no, they don't care. Fans care about that. Jackson says, can you answer the Panthers will win against the Titans? We'll talk about that in a second. Jamie Robertson says, if Manly lose, we have to listen to Dogs fans. Daz, mate, you do. There's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem. Go Jordan says, did Para think they were going to win the minor premiership? Para fans drink a lot. Man, I've had some crazy shit said on these streams before. A lot of them by Dragons fans too, Go Jordan, so don't you bloody start yapping. A lot of mainly from Dragons fans this year, actually. But yeah, Parramatta fans, obviously, at the beginning of the year were very believing in their team. And, good luck to them. You have to believe in your team. You do have to believe in your team. Otherwise, it's going to be, there's no point watching the sport, man. But I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell you my beliefs. If you don't like it, well, fair enough. That's your choice. But time to create your own channel and probably make your own tipping video. Good luck to you, to be honest with you. James Mo says Melbourne are a team that at the end of the season they give less much of a shit and turn it on in finals, but Keegan Hipgrave is playing. Is Para win? Para win. Are you an Eels fan, James? I can't remember. Digitate says 56-12 to the Storm. Bit of Keegan Hipgrave action. Look at that. Look at him fly. Look at old Keegs from the Gold Coast. But yeah, I'm taking Storm by 1-12. I know that's out of the blue. Obviously, Parramatta are paying an exorbitant fee to just win the game at 9-1, but I just think the Storm will be too good. But they're not going to care a great deal about absolutely blowing them out because their for and against is too good anyway. But if the Eels win, congratulations to them. But you ain't doing shit when it comes to the finals. But let's move into the second last game, the penultimate game of the weekend. Before we do that, smack that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you are new around here. Because if you don't subscribe, the Bulldogs probably will win this game. And that is just going to be an absolute bloody riot in society. And you know it for a fact. Do you want to see more riots? Well, gee whiz, the Bulldogs been all right if they win this game at Redcliffe on 1:50 p.m. on Sunday. Now, Manly, obviously, they do sit in 5th position. The Dogs sit in 16th position. The Dogs, if they win this game, they will go to 16th position, but if they lose this game, they will also stay in 16th position. I know it's crazy, but it's probably what it's going to seem like right now, considering that unless the Dogs can pull off a magical, figuring out somebody else's salary cap and trying to expose them to get another team to lose all their points, the Dogs have actually officially caught the wooden spoon. Manly, they currently sit in 5th position right now. They're on 30 points. So is Parramatta on 30 points. And the Roosters on 32 points. So Manly, if they win this game and the Roosters lose their game, then they would go above the Roosters into the top 4 spot because they're for and against, but they have to rely on the Roosters losing. If the Roosters don't lose both these games from here on out, Manly will finish in 5th and they'll have to play the Sharks, the Titans, the Raiders, or the Knights. So yeah, look, it's a tough predicament there for Manly. It's not in their own hands right now, but the Roosters do obviously have that tough task against the Rabbitohs, and they're happy that the Eels obviously are playing the Eels are playing the Storm too. Because if Manly lost this game and then the Eels won against the Storm, then Manly actually get pushed down to 6th, which would be absolutely crazy, really, really random, and it would avoid them altogether if the Roosters won of getting into the top 4. Let's go have a look at the team lineups here. Well, firstly, obviously, last week we saw Manly win 19-18 against the Raiders, and the Bulldogs, they lost 22-16 to the Knights. Wasn't terrible, but they're pretty terrible. Their team lineups: Seagulls bring back Tommy Trbojevic. Well, he's back on deck. I did tell you guys last week in the tipping stream that he wasn't going to be playing. Some people said, oh, he's named on the team list. I'm like, I don't really care. He's not going to be playing. And he didn't play. But he'll be on deck after missing the Canberra game due to a cheek injury, with stand-in Tavita Funa unavailable until the finals after he copped a 2-game ban for a shoulder charge on Canberra's Elliott Whitehead. Brad Parker will return after he was given a week suspension following a high shot the week before against the Eels, which will send Moses Sully back to the reserves. I just don't like that. I liked Moses Sully coming back in. Toa Sipley retains his spot at prop after a pre-match switch with Josh Aloiai last week. The former West Tiger is named on the interchange. Bulldogs, on the other hand, suspensions. Suspension, only Josh Jackson backing up from the round 23 starting pack and an entirely new interchange selected, so there are a lot of suspensions then. Adam Elliott has been stood down. Luke Thompson has been suspended. Corey Waddell has been suspended. Corey Horsburgh and Ryan James have both been recalled by Canberra, have been replaced by Ava Siamanafungai and Jack Hetherington at prop, while the new second rowers will be last week's 18th man, Matt Dorey and Joe Stimson, who wins a promotion for the interchange. So the Dogs, gee whiz, their entire forward pack has been changed here. Bailey Biondi Adu has been promoted to start dummy half after wearing the number 14 last week, with Jackson Tapine dropped to the extended bench. The new look interchange consists of Brandon Wakeham, Ofahiki Ogden, Chris Patolo, and Sione Katoa. Lachlan Lewis has been kept at the 5'8" after replacing Jake Averillo last week, but Averillo has been named on the extended bench. So a lot of changes here with the Dogs, and I'm still going to take Manly 13+, and I'm still going to take Manly 40+. This team is woeful. We kept saying like 4 or 5 weeks ago, okay, this is when the Bulldogs start to get a bit decent. They kind of make a push, but for not getting the spoon, which is what they did last year. But they didn't do shit. They've been worse. Like, yeah, look, okay, a couple of games against Rabbitohs and Roosters where they were close and still lost. Besides that, pumped by the Titans, pumped by the bloody Dragons, pumped by bloody everybody. They lost the Knights by 6, but still they lost, man. Like, this team can't win. They're dead set. It's just a madness. It's a madness. I'm taking Manly here. I'm taking Manly by bloody 50, mate. I'm taking Manly by 50. They won 66-0 the last time they played them, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see another goddamn 66-0. It's just outrageous. It's straight up outrageous because the Bulldogs are that woeful. And I know their players won't like it, but your players, you have to understand. Like, you haven't won a game, bloody, since Yonkers. Not Anzac Day, since you played the Dragons. Like, legit, that was before lockdown happened, mind you. Welcome to the party, Bulldogs players. You haven't won a game since you beat the Dragons on Queen's birthday, like I got a couple months ago. My God. James Formosa says Manly 13 plus. Jack Dempsey says Titans have just re-signed Jaden Campbell to 2024. Dasmate says Hetherington's last game of the season after he gets suspended again. Fair enough, to be honest with you. Considering that obviously all the Bulldogs players in the front row and in the forwards have been suspended. That'd be interesting for the last game. Who did the Dogs actually play in the last game? Interestingly enough, they play the Tigers. Yikes! The Tigers might actually get a win for the first time in ever there. So yeah, I'm taking Manly by about 50 here. It's not going to go. The Dogs aren't going to make this close to me. Manly are going to crush them, just like they did last time. Harry Wood said, in the end, Manly have speed and Dogs don't, and that has been a big factor this year. In the end, Manly have a clue and Dogs don't, is my response to that. Macapaka says, like Jamie Robertson said, Garrick has 274 points this season and Bulldogs have 284. Madness. Wow. Like, holy shit. Like holy shit. Ruben Garrick apparently has 274 points this season, and the Canterbury Bulldogs have 284. Like, I haven't seen a more embarrassing stat in a very long time. That is horrific. That is horrific. But on that note, we're going to move into the next game. Wow, that is diabolical, Bulldogs fans, and I'm sorry for you. I'm not sorry for the club because they put themselves in this situation, but I am absolutely sorry for you. But let's move into the final game of the weekend. But before we do that, what are we doing, guys? We're hitting that thumbs up button and we are subscribing if we are new around here. Because if you don't, I tell you what, I told you, the Bulldogs will win that game and then all hell is going to break loose. And you don't want to see that. You don't want to see that. The world's in a shit enough place it is. You don't want to see the Doggies fans telling you that they're going to win the 2022 Premiership like we basically get on streams as it is right now. So bloody please, for the love of God, subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. But the final game of the weekend, Penrith Panthers and the West Tigers, Sunday at 4:05 p.m. The Panthers are $1.03 here. The Tigers are 13-1. Panthers are in second position. The Tigers are in 13th. Panthers have to win this game to maintain and push for them getting the minor premiership. They'd still have to kind of rely on the Eels winning though. Yeah, Storm would have to lose basically both their last games for the Panthers to have a chance, which is just not happening. It's just not happening there. They can draw. They can't unless the Rabbitohs do in fact win by 60 and the Panthers lose. And I'm talking 60 and the Panthers lose to the Tigers. Then, which has happened before, but obviously the Panthers had literally 8 players out. So shush Tigers fans out there who say we've been before. Yeah, cool. Like literally everyone was out. I'm pretty certain that was the under 16 Panthers team in there at the time. But the Rabbitohs, yeah, they can jump above them with a 60-point win and the Panthers gone below. But it's not going to happen, obviously. Let's move into the team. Actually, did I go through? I just don't really care where the Tigers are. Tigers are in 13th position right now. Should be in 18th position in a 16-team league, but they're in 13th right now. They're on 18 points with minus 162 points differential. If the Broncos and Cowboys win their next 2 games by big and the Tigers lose their next 2 games by big, there is every potential that the Tigers could finish in 15th still. I actually predicted them 15th beginning of the season, but they would need to lose both games and Broncos and Cowboys to win both games to be in that position. But it's not totally out of the question. Tigers play Bulldogs next week, but Tigers and Bulldogs... I can't necessarily give that win to your Tigers fans. I'm not going to lie. They are still technically in the hunt for the 8. They're still technically mathematically in the hunt for the 8. The Tigers, if they would need, I think they would need to win both games massively. The Dragons to lose, the Warriors to lose against the Warriors to win this week against the Raiders and then lose next week against the... No, shit. I don't know. You guys do the math for me because this is just... They would need to win huge. It's still technically mathematically possible, but if you think the Tigers are making the 8, please check yourself into the local insanity ward because you are out of control. Tigers coming to this game losing 50-20 to the Sharks. 50-20 to the Sharks, and they looked absolutely woeful in that. Sharks weren't great and still scored 50 points. And then on the other hand, the Panthers obviously come in after beating the Rabbitohs 25-12 in an interesting game there. Team lineups here. Any changes, really? Panthers, James Fisher-Harris and winger Bright O will play their first games since round 19, with Matty Eisenhuth and Brett Naden dropping out of the squad. Dylan Edwards has been named and will be monitored as the week progresses due to a head knock. If he is to be ruled out, Stephen Crichton would be going probably into the fullback position. Tyrone May has been named to return on the extended bench alongside brother Talon. Moving into the Tigers team, 5'8" Adam Dewey has been left out after failing to finish the joint ventures loss to the Sharks because of a knee injury. My goodness me. I hate how I just read out joint ventures. Like, come on, man. But yeah, Adam Dewey is out due to, unfortunately, a knee issue. Jock Madden has been given the nod to take his place. Thomas McHale and Jacob Little will return at prop and hooker, with 1 week bans to Joe Offahangawi and Jake Simpkin dropping back to the interchange. Recently resigned back rower Alex Seafarth will return from a knee injury on the bench. Tukey Simpkins and Billy Walters will be relegated to the reserves, and Kelma Tuilangi out of the squad altogether. James Tarmo, the captain, who has missed the past 2 matches with a foot injury, has been given another week to recover, so he won't be there. May as well give him the rest of the season, man, because the Tigers aren't playing for anything. I'm taking the Panthers by 13 plus here, and when I say 13 plus, I'm talking about 113 plus. It's at Moreton Bay Stadium in Redcliffe. That's a good track to be scoring a lot of points in. And I think the Panthers are going to score a lot of points in this game. I think the Panthers will score a lot of points in this game. They're really going to put the Tigers to the sword. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers put more points on the board than Manly did against the Dogs, which was 66-0, mind you. I don't see the Tigers scoring. Dewey's probably their only good player to get them on the board. I'm going to take Panthers legitimately. Like, I could take them by 70. I could nearly take them by 70. And that's embarrassing. It is. But then you weigh into account that the Tigers have been crushed by a majority of teams this year. They just came off a 50-22 thumping. A 50-22 thumping by the Sharks of all teams. The Sharks. Let's go through some of their season. They lost 46 to the Roosters. They lost 36-22 to the Eels. They lost the Cowboys 34-30. They lost 40-6 to Manly. They lost 36-28 to the Titans. They lost 30-26 to the Warriors. They lost 40-12 to the Eels. They lost 66-16 to the Storm. 38-22 to the Rabbitohs. 44-24 to Manly. They had a couple of good wins against the Bulldogs and the Cowboys, which made them think they were going to make the top 8. And then obviously, 50-20 to the Sharks. So yeah, they're woeful. They are woeful. So yeah, I'm taking the Panthers. I'm taking them by dead set. Honestly, if you have a market of 50 plus on wherever betting agency you use, buddy, go for it, mate. Buddy, go for it. Duck and Boxing MMA says Tigers sure love that 9th spot. They ain't getting the 9th spot, mate. They ain't getting the 9th spot. You guys can have your fanatic thoughts about that 9th spot all you like, but they can't get that 9th spot, really. They would need so much to go their way to even get to the 9th position, let alone 10th, let alone 11th or 12th. They're probably going to finish 13th or 12th, to be honest with you. James Mo says, to be honest, I know it's big, but the bottom 3 next year will be quite clear. I think we all know who the bottom 3 next year is right now. I think we do. Obviously, some teams have improved, some teams have not improved, and some teams have massively regressed. And I could clearly tell you a bottom 3, but we'll leave that for the preview next season. Digitate says, teams that are not in the 8 play a very boring game from my point of view because most of the games are one-sided. Kind of. Sometimes when your teams are not making the 8 are playing teams who are trying to make the 8, the other team plays good just so they can try and make and ensure that the other team doesn't get inside that 8 there. So that's why the Broncos and the Sharks game could be quite interesting. Titans Knights is the same anyway, but the Raiders are playing who are the Raiders playing again? Gee whiz, we've gone through all scores and I can't even remember. I dead set I can't even remember. Hold on one second. Let's go up. Let's go up to all teams here. Raiders playing the Warriors. But the Warriors aren't making it, but they still technically are, so that's a very interesting game. But look, that's going to do us for today, guys. Obviously, we've gone through all the games this weekend. There's still 2 rounds to go. So even after this round, the 8, no matter what, will still not be locked off. It doesn't matter what results happen this round. The 8 will still not be locked off. 7th still isn't even locked off right now. The Knights still could finish out of the 8, guys. If the Knights lose the Titans this week, there's actually a relatively decent opportunity that they do finish out of the 8 this year, which is crazy to think. They do play the Broncos, but the Broncos obviously have been massively improved of late. They're playing for nothing, and when teams play for nothing, they really do grind it away, and we saw that just last week against the Warriors. It's going to be very interesting. Don't forget, obviously, as well, guys, tomorrow night we are going to be doing an NRL Kahoot. We haven't done one of these in quite some time. I'll do it around 7:30 p.m. or so. I'm not too sure. Obviously, I'll put that up later on tonight. I do have to film the Rugby Down Under podcast on Spotify in just a few moments with the Kiwi lads, so I'll be jumping off pretty damn well soon. But yeah. That's going to do us. Hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're around here. We'll be streaming literally every single game this weekend. Obviously, if you haven't checked out the schedule yet, the BKRsport community page is the place for you to go, because we've literally got the entire schedule for the week coming on up right over there. But there we go, guys. All right, I'm jumping off for now, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the Kahoot, I guess. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Catch you later. Good luck this weekend, unless you're a Sharks fan or a Knights fan or a Raiders fan. But good luck to everybody else. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.